Hello, this is Professor Marsh, and we're getting down to the end of the VITA training. This is lesson number 30 on calculating the refund or the amount of additional tax due. And so to get started on this, as we have on the other recent programs, we're going to start with the lesson plan that you can find at IRS, the TCE, VITA TCE Central. And this one begins with a number of key terms, and it's also discusses the practical aspects of how your taxpayer clients can get the refund that they are due, or how to pay the additional tax that they owe. And it's important for us as VITA volunteers to be familiar with those options and to be able to advise taxpayers to understand their refund and payment choices. And remember that one of our ethical standards is that we would never commingle our money, with our taxpayer clients. And the reason that this is mentioned is because many of our taxpayer clients are going to be poor and perhaps don't have regular banking relationships. And so what this lesson also helps you to identify is that the taxpayers have alternatives as far as how they can receive their refunds, which could include the purchase of savings bonds, how they can make payments if they don't have regular bank accounts, and also how they can set up a bank account, and that the bank accounts, it's got links to various bank accounts in all sorts of jurisdictions over the country, in which taxpayers can actually set up a bank account online while we're assisting them. So this is something that we can provide a real service for our taxpayers so that they can get the amount of the refund that they are owed under the tax code. So or make their payments. So you see some key terms that are on the first page of the lesson plan, and I would ask you to review and read all of those, make sure that you're familiar with them. There are discussion of the underpayment of estimated taxes, what happens when you've got a situation where there's going to be an estimated tax penalty. You can advise the taxpayers that is probably going to happen, and advise them what to do when they receive that underpayment of estimated tax penalty, and get familiar enough with it so that you can kind of give them some estimate of what that penalty might be. Then installment agreement requests. If somebody needs an installment agreement, there's a form for requesting that. That's a taxpayer who can't make their payments of what's due right now, but want to get into an agreement with the IRS to agree to pay it over time. The IRS is pretty generous about that, particularly for low-income taxpayers, often allowing it to be paid over 6 months or up to 24 months with no questions asked. And that way the taxpayer won't get hit with a federal tax lien, which could ruin their credit. Then various forms of W-4s with respect to withholding certificates, and that's then a discussion of what the tax liabilities, the total tax bill, that is the amount of tax due after non-refundable credits have been subtracted from the taxpayer's tax obligation, and the taxpayer pays their federal income tax liability through the withholding and estimated tax payments they've already made, but then also if they still owe additional money, they make a payment with the income tax return, and this discusses how to do that and how to send it directly to the Treasury, as opposed to sending it with the income tax return, which is how we used to do that. So we're going to be filing electronically, so that's the situation where they'd have to mail in or otherwise send in some amount. Then a withholding allowance, what that is, and a withholding tax, and you can see all that. We kind of talked about that with payments last time in the last lesson. So then on page 2, there are links to various aids, some of your resource materials, Form 1040 in the section on refund and amount you owe down at the bottom of page 2, and then Form 13614C on page 2, how to complete that. And then in the publication 4012, tab K, finishing the return, and tab P, partner resources, you can see the split refund option, pointers for direct deposit of refunds, and that would be the preferred method of refunding, would be a direct deposit from the IRS back to the taxpayer's bank account. So then there's also a link to the Where's My Refund tab on the IRS's website, and you can point that out to our taxpayer clients. And then there's also a link to Form 4888, which is the allocation of refund and how they can receive it in savings bonds or in other methods that might permit them to receive it even if they don't have a regular bank account. And so that's so that, you don't want them to get a check that they have to take to a check cashing service, and that's kind of the idea behind all this. So that's there's a YouTube video that's linked on page 3. When will I get my refund? And a tool for that, and that's just a 1-minute video from the IRS itself that explains how the refund process works. This might be more important for new taxpayers, but is also is an important reminder on the typical time that it takes the IRS to process returns and issue refunds. It by statute is allowed to be 45 days. As a practical matter, it is often quicker than that for returns that are filed electronically. So just look at that. Then there are links on page 4 to various parts of IRS.gov and some of the explanations that they have as far as the collection process and tax payment options. This is for taxpayers who owe money, and the form that you use to send in a check to pay your taxes is the Form 1040V. That's the 1040V is for voucher, and that's what's used to send the money in directly to the Treasury for income tax payments. And then the refund and the amount of the taxes owed is there are a lot of links to various forms and things that we looked at last time when we were talking about payments. So in any event, you can see this in reviewing the lesson plan itself, and I'm not sure there's that much more that you really need to learn on this. The split refund option is something that you should be aware of. That can be important for low-income taxpayers, particularly ones that you have married taxpayers, but they're not really living together, but they're still acting, at least with respect to their tax situation, as though they're married. So that can be an important point for them. Then, if you would like to take a look at the classroom presentation slides to review your knowledge and hopefully reinforce your knowledge of the various topics, and then I would recommend that you go to the skills workout that is at VITA TCE, and do take a look at that. It's 25 pages, and it has lots of examples on really the bottom line question that most of our clients in the VITA program are going to want to know, which is how how they get their money from their tax refund. And so you can see some of the things that can offset it or delay it. Uh, if there are mistakes on the return, if you have taxpayers that seem a little squirrely, you might explain to them that there is a matching program at the IRS, and if it turns out that the IRS has information that doesn't match up with the return, that the IRS is going to make adjustments, and if the adjustments are quite substantial, it might delay the issuance of any refund for some time until the IRS is able to be satisfied that they have the correct information that matches up with the third-party reporting documents that they've already received. So that's a discussion, and it also helps you coach your clients as far as the best ways for them economically. And so there's a little bit of sort of social work going on here, but you're coaching them on the best ways to protect them in receiving their refund in a way that will be safe and secure, and is likely to give them the full value of the refund that they're entitled to in a way that they'll be protected from creditors, predators, and interlopers who are trying to steal their identities or their tax money. So do go through the skills workout, look at the certification warm-up questions, and then go on to our next lesson, which is going to be on finishing the return. So have a great day, and we'll talk with you again very soon. Bye-bye.